speaking, oyster mushrooms, which we grow a lot of, we can produce those within about 3 weeks. So we can, the whole process takes a couple months, but the colonization of the fruiting substrate, when in our case straw, that we pasteurize and inoculate, from inoculation onto the straw to the beginning of fruiting is about 3 weeks. So we're harvesting mushrooms in about a month. Reishi, much longer. We inoculate sawdust. That takes a couple months to colonize, and then the mushrooms take about a month to grow.
And how
Uh,
many mushrooms are being produced? Is it a fairly consistent number or it's different with each colony?
Different with each one, yeah. So people call it the biological efficiency, the BE, right? And it kind of goes down the list where you have oyster mushrooms again, which have some of the highest biological efficiency. So you can take 10 pounds of straw and you wet it, wet straw, and you can grow 10 pounds of oyster mushrooms. And so oyster mushrooms are often the introductory to a lot of people doing cultivation, and also small farms that want to set up. They're the easiest, they grow the fastest, they're also the cheapest, at the grocery store. But people love them. They're super popular, super nutritious, super healthy, loaded with protein and vitamins, and have been looked at in all kinds of scenarios where there's food insecurity, there's natural disasters. What else produced protein in 4 weeks? Not eggs, not fish, not chickens. Maybe mealworms, if you're into eating mealworms.
Yeah.
But next to insects, it's like that's a really big fast turnaround from straw to protein. From agricultural waste to protein.
Mm-hmm.
For people to eat. So driving, huge semis into disaster zones set up to be fruiting fruiting environments, setting up tents where people could grow the mushrooms. And that is kind of, again, in places throughout Asia, South Asia, Africa, India. You'll see a lot of oyster production because a small village can, with basic materials, and even if they have to buy the spawn, everything else can be done outdoors in a non-sterile environment to produce oyster mushrooms. And then you have things like shiitakes. Shiitakes have a pretty high biological efficiency. And then lion's manes, kind of a little bit lower. And then reishi, even lower. And these also, you'll see reflecting almost the exact prices that you get in the store.
Mm-hmm.
Oysters are the cheapest, shiitakes are the next, lion's manes are more expensive, reishi is the most expensive. Just to use examples of things that we grow.
And so oyster mushrooms, they're the ones that have the high protein count.
Oh, most of them do, but this just as an example of something that grows that fast that
Mm-hmm.
produces that much protein. Yeah.
Do they make any protein powders out of that? I don't know if you would know. Because I
I
know
don't.
that they've started making like hemp protein, and that's a pretty
Right.
popular
Yeah. Yeah.
plant-based protein powder. I don't know if they make any mushroom ones, but that sounds like that would be a great way to
Totally.
get clean protein.
Yeah. And you're seeing products, starting to incorporate just ground up mushrooms in, like, vegetarian patties and burgers and mushroom jerkies and things. So that's becoming more popular too.
I didn't even know mushroom jerky was a thing. They just dry out the mushroom.
Just as you would do with meat, marinate it, and then slice it up real thin, and then bake it in the oven a little bit, and then dehydrate it, and you end up with this, whatever you want it to taste like, kind of spicy, chewy, vegan jerky.
Huh. Well, that's incredible.
Yeah. And some mushrooms lend themselves more, just like different, vegetables in your garden and different meats and things lend themselves to kind of different dishes and
Mm-hmm.
have different textures and, different, you know, stand up better to, boiling or cooking or frying or baking or, pateing or what have you.
And so for someone, since we're in these COVID times, for someone looking to get, a tincture or mushroom that kind of provides the best overall, vitamin count and mineral count, what would you recommend for that person?
Yeah, the double extraction
Is
is
the way to go.
the way to go for sure. Um, there's been some really good research, and a lot of this, is kind of cutting edge and stuff. We're finding out more and more as time, goes on, and more people do more studies and analyze the nutrients and these mushrooms. The dehydrated mycelium is a lot cheaper to produce, and so you see these mushroom powders at the store, and they're growing the mycelium, like I mentioned, on brown rice or on sorghum, and then they're baking the grain with the mycelium, and then they're grinding it and powdering it, dehydrating it and powdering it. You have a lot of, it's still a lot of brown rice. You're getting the mushroom out of there, but that's why they're cheaper, is because it's a lot easier to grow. Paul Stamets published some studies showing that some of the compounds in the mycelium were in a larger concentration than they were in the fruiting body. But there's also been some studies showing the exact opposite for other certain compounds. And so when the fungi is in this vegetative phase of reproduction and producing more and more and more mycelium and more mycelium, there's stronger, compounds that you might find in that. But then when it goes to produce the fruiting body and it develops this huge mushroom, it pumps a lot of the nutrients and minerals from the mycelium up into the fruiting body also. So there's been some kind of differencing of opinions and a lot of really interesting studies coming out of what is the most powerful medicine you can get, from these processes. What can you grow the mycelium on to enhance the nutrients in the mycelium? Because whatever it's growing on, just like your garden, is what ends up in your vegetables. It's what ends up in the mushroom. So that's like a really powerful tool too. So that's being discussed more and more. So you're seeing different farms using different techniques and different substrates, which is producing different concentrations. There was one company that was looking at growing mineral rich, I think it was selenium rich substrate, and harvesting the fruiting bodies and selling them as a selenium nutrient supplement, because it was condensing it and making it bioavailable by basically breaking it down and concentrating it up into this fruiting body. So what's the difference then if you grow something on, organic substrate? What if you grow it on, what if you add extra minerals and vitamins to the substrate?
Make it more nutrient dense.
Yeah. What if you eat the mycelium versus the fruiting body? What compounds of each mushroom is more potent for what ailment you're trying to address, that maybe's in the fruiting body or maybe's more in the mycelium?
Mm-hmm.
So right now we just decided to just use fruiting bodies because I've read so much research, and it's traditional medicine and indigenous knowledge going back so long of what's in these fruiting bodies and all the nutrients that's condensed and pulled out of the substrate and forced up into this reproductive, giant mushroom. And so, we might start incorporating myceliums, over time, but there's no way to extract out the sorghum or the brown rice. And so inevitably you're eating a lot of brown rice, so the dosages on those bottles, take a teaspoon a day, might not give you the best bang for your buck. Of the compounds you're trying to get, so I'm still kind of waiting for more research to come out, but in the meantime, we feel most confident of using fruiting bodies for our extraction, the mushrooms themselves.